Good evening, and here are today's tropics for September 16th, 2019. Just as a note, I'm not a meteorologist, and this video is just a collection of my thoughts and opinions. For any decision making, please consult the National Hurricane Center, your local officials, or your National Weather Service office. Okay, so we have Hurricane Humberto. There's some convection wrapping around now. It's gotten stronger, so it can actually get some more of that convection down shear, because there's some shear from the southwest. If you can see right here, there's some cloud tops being blown off to the northeast. So it is a strengthening storm. At least from yesterday, it's better organized. As you can see, there is an eye here that's cleared out in infrared imagery, though it is a bit ragged. This is because the eye wall isn't quite closed, so this dry air feed from the south is allowed to wrap in and kind of get into the core without being walled off by a closed eye wall. Instead, there's a lot of a collection of spiral bands kind of going in to form an eye wall type feature that never really got closed. There are hints that this actually might be already replacing itself, and we might see a closed eye wall soon, but we'll have to see how this kind of pseudo eye wall replacement cycle works out. So while it does look kind of ragged, as I said, there is a good amount of upper divergence here, which is basically this good outflow in this area. You can also see that the general enhanced convection up in this area is another sign that there's diverging air at the upper levels. Look on the water vapor imagery, you can see that westerly flow at the upper levels returning a bit. So as this hits the outflow coming out, not even that much to the west, it just kind of arrests this flow. So again, that leads to upper convergence and this subsidence right here. So then this, because at the surface, this dry air then gets infected into the system, which again disrupts. As you can see, it's not looking too great right now. The convection is very deep, and it's quite ragged. But again, there's this very good outflow, and it's even better here that there's a very vigorous jet taking a lot of the outflow out. This will still allow the tropical cyclone to deepen, as we've been seeing today, just not very rapidly, as it needs to organize further to actually do that. As you can see, the convection is favored here because there is that good upper outflow and upper divergence, which spurs on rising air into convection. So look at the Reconnaissance. So it needs an update, but okay, they're heading back home right now. But if you look on here, they did have one vortex data message right here, 974 millibars. I'll zoom in here to make it easier to see. And take a look at this path right here. They came down here and then turned around and basically went in and out of the eye a bunch of times to measure the lowest pressure and see and measure the highest winds. They didn't really find much that even supports the 80 knot wind that the National Hurricane Center currently has at their 8 p.m. advisory. It looks like it might be closer to 80 miles an hour, but we'll have to see at the 11 p.m. advisory. So the wind field is rather broad. As you can see, the hurricane force winds, while they're very vigorous, because none of them actually got up to Category 2 strength flight level, it is very broad. So this broad core is what needs larger pressure falls to get higher winds. So this is exactly what's happening, and the relative disorganization right now is keeping those winds down for the time being before it can actually close off a more well-organized eye wall. And it's a bit hard to see, but uh, but they're the last pass got right about here, and that's where they found the center in general. So it is again moving a bit slowly to the east. If you look on the GFS here, this is the current analysis, so you do have some of those west-southwesterly winds aloft coming into Florida and then getting kind of stopped near Humberto, which is leading to upper convergence and that's sinking air that does end up getting into the system. However, you do see this very well-defined upper divergence right here, which is the part of the mid-latitude jet that's really airing it out right now. And then there is an upper ridge to the southeast of Humberto, so that's also helping this upper divergence. So this means you've got a lot of that mass coming out of the system and getting almost like evacuated out, which helps lower the pressures at the surface, as there's more of that divergence, letting the air leave. So if we look forward, see that it continues going northeast, and then you can see a bit later there is this extremely vigorous jet here with winds aloft over 100 knots. So there's a very good upper divergence, but as you can see, there's a lot of west-southwesterly to southwesterly wind at height that is impacting the storm. It is also moving to the northeast as well, so some of this cancels out in the actual shear calculation, but it would affect the system a bit, but be lessened by this upper divergence, which does help convection to like rise and keep the pressure falls happening still. And then if you go forward, it pretty much continues until you get a big surge of southwesterlies, as you can see right here, about 3 days out from now. So this is Thursday late morning. And then you got the features like here's the upper trough, that's part of the big trough kicking the system out, and then here there's the big surge of southwesterlies that really decouples the system and begins its extratropical transition. If we go further forward, you can see it becomes pretty disheveled. There's not really much of an upper level kind of signature to it anymore. It basically, I'd guess, becomes extratropical as it goes over the much colder waters and gets affected by this very, very strong shear, which would decouple it despite its probably fast northeastward movement. So here we have the National Hurricane Center cone. Notice that Bermuda is under tropical storm watch. So if you have any interest there, just keep an eye on the storm. You're still at the edge of the cone, but since the wind field is rather large, as you can see right here, even if it does go, or even if it does go more than north of the cone, there is a possibility, especially as it expands, as it becomes less tropical and heads north, that you may still get those tropical storm force winds. So even if you don't get a direct hit by the eye wall or like a very much stronger parts of the storm. So yeah, just if you live in Bermuda or have any interest there, please watch Humberto for at least for the time being. So as you can see, the National Hurricane Center believes it will get stronger than previously forecast. See the M here, meaning major hurricane. So it is expected to peak at 115 miles an hour before it starts weakening due to that southwesterly shear and impending extratropical transition. Well, to see if that does happen, because there isn't really much data supporting 90 miles an hour right now. It looks more like 80 based on the reconnaissance flights going in right now. So it needs to organize a lot before getting here. So this might be actually too high. but we'll have to see since these kind of storms can surprise people. Now here we have Invest 97L. Its chances were increased to be having a 90% chance of becoming a tropical depression in the next 5 days. As you can see, there's some mild easterly shear. You can see there's a lot of easterly flow aloft, and the convection is kind of getting sheared a bit to the east here. So yeah, there's that easterly shear that is currently hampering a lot of more organized kind of convection, but you can see there is a general envelope of like cyclonic, general envelope of cyclonic flow in this area, but it's quite elongated. It's quite elongated right now, so we'll have to see if it can really concentrate into a more well-defined low-level center. This is more likely under this convection, so further southwest in the envelope here, so it's not likely to form up here, more likely down here, which does have track implications, might travel further south than models think. But we'll have to see what happens once a low-level center actually forms. So right here, yeah, there's that deep layer easterly flow at the surface and aloft, and it's relatively strong, and that it's strong enough to actually shear the system despite the 200 millibar wind and 850 millibar wind having a similar vector. If we go forward in this run, see that, yeah, this flow continues for a while, and there is a bit of that upper divergence, as you can see here, that is allowing for convection to form more, is encouraging more convection to form. And you can see this upper trough. This is related to the outflow from Humberto. So you can see here, yeah, that there's this trough, and it almost looks like it's a bit too far north to really hit Invest 97L badly, as long as this track does happen, because 97L is centered around here. So this is more just usual anticyclonic flow that doesn't really hurt a system, rather than it being, say, up like here or something and it being sheared. So its track has some implications for its strength, because if it goes too far north, it might be shredded out by this shear and then travel out to sea. But if it's further south, it might have actual impacts on some people and not be sheared as much, which isn't very great. Go further forward, see the shear actually starts turning a bit northerly, so this might actually start hitting the system not quite immediately. It's rather weak. This isn't too bad of a look, but you can see there's a large upper anticyclone ridge in this area, and it does like have a lot of that flow coming down into generally where Invest 97 will be at this point, or at least what this model says. So if we go a bit more forward, you can see the Lesser Antilles here. So it isn't in a very super unfavorable environment, really. At least, so there's some mild north easterly shear, but it's not like anything that will kill the system, as long as this is correct. Then you can see this very strong ridge, jet that extends down to like 25 degrees north, 25 degrees north, which is actually pretty surprising. It's probably related to some kind of digging trough. And this is near the end of September, so you do get these very strong troughs going down. And then Invest 97L at this point is, yeah, up like here. So as you can see, there isn't really much at upper levels, so it suggests that it's a weak system. And uh, then, oops, sorry. Yeah. Anyway, towards the end of this kind of run, it does start running into this jet, which might mean it starts getting sheared, even though there isn't really much at the surface. So, is it really shearing all that much? We'll have to see. But if it's in this general area, yeah, it's being hit by a good amount of westerly flow aloft, and there is some upper troughing here, so it's probably gonna later in the run, this probably does get curved out to sea. So it's not a super huge threat to too many people. There may be some rain impacts in the northern Greater Antilles if this does happen, but this is like almost a week out, so a lot of things can change, and it really depends where a low level center forms, if any, although that is likely. And here's Invest 98L. It practically formed or was designated in the last hour, so there's still images having to be generated. But this is the system brought on by the upper low. You can see that there's some of that flow that's still there. You can see the northeasterlies here, but their southwesterlies here. So there's likely at least an upper trough or an upper low, and it's somewhere between these areas. And because of the upper divergence in the eastern Gulf, it allowed a large area of convection to form, which has been traveling westward and is starting to show signs of forming a low-level area, low pressure. So there's a bit of a circulation, as you can see. There's some westerlies, so this may be more mid-level, but there is some kind of low pressure trying to set up in this general area. And you can see that convection is also being supported in this area because there is that very warm water, and the shear, there isn't really much shear because you can see there's upper ridging or an upper anticyclone aloft. That's redundant, but yeah, so the shear isn't really a problem for this system. So it might be able to form a brief tropical cyclone before it starts moving inland generally into this area, into the western Gulf Coast. So there probably won't be any substantial wind impacts from this system. It looks more like it might be a rain threat, dumping a lot of rain over like southeastern Texas. But we'll have to see what it does if it there isn't too much convection in this area. So if it can't generate a lot of it, there won't be as much rain, obviously. But we'll have to see what the system does in the next few days, because it will have impacts on somebody, even if it's not like from wind, which is pretty unlikely at this point because it's close to the coast and doesn't have much time to form and then strengthen. Anyway, that's it for today. If you have any feedback, I'd appreciate it, and thank you for watching.